Welcome back to the Anti-War Room, now actually sitting in the United States Congress in the office of Congressman Jim Moran. Jim, thanks for joining us once again.
It's always good to be with you, Tom.
You know, Jim, we are trying to sort through this very complex morass going on here. You are, not only are you on the most important committee of Congress in terms of money, the Appropriations Committee, but you're also on the subcommittee that deals with war funding. You have been consistently against this war in Iraq. You want us out, you want to stop the funding, but nonetheless, we find out that there's a bill that's going to come to the floor. It's going to avoid not only your subcommittee, but your entire committee. It's going right onto the floor, and it looks like the president is not only going to get every penny he asked for the war, but actually more than he asked for. Tell us what's going on. What is your take on this, and why?
Well, I think that the way the bill is been structured is a little too clever by half, frankly. There'll be three elements of it. The first will be to fully fund the war, and in fact to go beyond that and fund it through June 2009. The idea is that you would give the next president, in my mind, hopefully Barack Obama, 6 months of breathing space. So basically, it's almost $180 billion to fund the war for another 12 months. And then presumably he would be in a position to start immediate and substantial withdrawal in June of '09. I'm going to vote against it, I think, for any number of reasons. Obviously the war is wrong, but also in terms of misplaced priorities, what we could be doing with $180 billion. So I'll be voting no, but it will pass.
Okay.
It'll pass with Republican votes and conservative Democratic votes.
Okay, so that's the first of three pieces. He asked for 108. He's going to get $180 billion. Okay.
That's correct. The second element will be restrictions on the war funding. It will say within 30 days a withdrawal has to begin, and it needs to be accomplished within 180 days, 6 months. That is fine by me. It also says no permanent military bases in Iraq. Soldiers have to have as much downtime at home with their families as they spend in combat.
Pretty radical notion, my God. The fact that we'd have to even put this in statute, Jim.
Under every other precedent, this has been the way it has operated. The guys that sent us to war, as you well know, have never been to war themselves and did everything they could to avoid having to go when they were of age. But so now they try to prove their manhood by sending others to war. But I don't want to digress so much into that. Anyways, there will be another provision that says that every federal agency needs to abide by the Army Field Manual in terms of interrogation, so no more torture. By that I mean the progressive, the anti-war folks, and if you were in the Congress, you too would be voting for that. That may pass in the House. We know it won't in the Senate, and the President would veto the bill if it were ever attached. So in other words, they're kind of throwing out a bone to the anti-war folks. The third element is a stimulus package. It will include unemployment insurance, a number of other things. The leadership hasn't necessarily informed us of everything that will be in it, but the big piece will be a GI Bill, updating the GI Bill from World War II that will enable any veteran to go to 4 years of college at the cost of the public college in their state for 4 years and give them a stipend to live on. So that's a very substantial benefit. It's about $10 billion a year. Some estimate it will be considerably more than that. It is an entitlement. It will be permanent.
So it's about a month's worth of Iraq war funding would be for these young people that are in the war.
Yeah, and you're exactly right in your observation, Tom. And now the conservative Democrats, the so-called Blue Dogs, have objected. The counter to their objection is that, as you say, this is in a relatively short period of time in Iraq, and yet you're able to take care of all of the veterans and doing for them what they have done for the country. It's a small element of the population, and they had to endure all of the sacrifice. So I think you could justify it on that basis. The Blue Dogs will come back and say, well, this is a permanent entitlement, the war is temporary. And we'll have that debate. I think that the third element will pass as well. So all three elements will go to the Senate. The Senate will knock out the restrictions on war funding, as they always have, using the argument that the president's going to veto this anyways, and you have to fund the troops in the field. The funding for the war will pass, and probably the GI Bill will pass, and probably unemployment insurance. And it should. When we have a housing foreclosure crisis, there aren't sufficient jobs in the areas that are having the most problem. How can you exacerbate it by telling the head of household that you no longer got to get unemployment insurance? And then they clearly will go bankrupt and not pay their mortgage. So I think that needs to be done. It's shocking that the president hasn't offered to do that on his own initiative. But that's what will go to the president. The end result is that we will continue funding this war through June of 2009. And that's why I probably sound a little frustrated, because I am.